Right. So today we are not going to have, as I said, we are not going to have any content discussed, but we will just look at what this module is about and what you are going to learn and why you are learning this module. Because I think that is the most important thing, because you need to know why I'm learning a particular module. Right. So in that case, in this today's discussion, what I really want is to give you a brief explanation about what we are going to talk about and why it is important to know this content for your degree program. Right. So I hope you can see the screen which I'm sharing, which is the module outline. Right. So this is a 2-credit module. It is a core module for both tele students as well as the ICE students. So we are going to have 2 hours per each week. 1 hour would be physical interaction and the other one would be online. So both have been scheduled on Tuesdays. So the physical session would come from 1 to 2 and the online session is from 3 to 4. So altogether we will be here for 2 hours each week, right? So if I just, I will come back to the assessment later, right? But first we will look at what we are going to learn in this particular module, right? So you can see there are 6 learning outcomes, right? And if we take the first come, it is describing the importance of teletraffic engineering in telecom networks. And the second one is describe the telecommunication network behavior using random processors and related characteristics. And I will just come back to them one by one, right? And third one is assess different queuing theories related to telecommunication systems and their impact. So I will maybe just highlight the most important parts here. Right, and in this one, this random processors is important. Right, and this is general, and then you will have to assess how the theories which we learn in the above is going to be applied, and we are going to talk about the core network, not only core network, and then we are going to apply into dimensioning real networks, right? So maybe there are some different terms as well, but if you look at the first learning outcomes, we are going to discuss why teletraffic engineering is really important, right? So in that case, I'm going to talk about 3 different areas, which is generally said to be the access network. Here you can see the access network, the transmission network, and the switching network. So I believe since you have had some modules related to telecom in previous sessions, you know that what is access network, what is transmission network, and what is switching network. So can someone confirm whether you know what is access network, what is transmission network, and what is switching? Yes, anyone who would like to confirm whether you know this one or at least even in a chat, you can confirm whether you know it or not. Right? So if you do not know, that is totally fine, so that I can explain. But I believe that this could have been discussed earlier. So that is what I just wanted to confirm. Right, so I have not got any feedback, right? So in that case, I will assume that you do not know, right? I assume that you do not know. So in that case, I will just share with you something else. Okay, I will share the whole screen. Right. So I believe you can see my screen now. So I'm sharing you with a mobile network architecture. Right. So this is a mobile network architecture. I believe you know this, but since all of you are silent, I will just take a little bit of time to explain here, because unless you understand this, you will not understand anything which I'm going to explain related to the module, right? So if we know that we have 2G technologies, 3G technology, 4G, and now 5G, right? So here I'm showing you a network architecture which includes 2G and 3G, right? So that is the second generation and the third generation. So whenever a user wants to make a call, we know that our mobile phones get connected to the nearest tower, right? I hope all of you have seen the towers when you are moving here and there, that let's say you are using a dialogue SIM. So your phone, your mobile phone will get connected to the closest dialogue tower so that you can make voice calls or else data sessions, right? So that is this link which is shown here. So it is basically said to be air, because we are transmitting from my mobile phone to the nearest base station through the air. So we are sending radio frequency signals, right? So when we are sending that signal, which means my mobile phone needs to get connected to the network to have some communication, right? And then we have something called, so this is generally said to be in 2G as the base station, right? So this is said to be the base station. And in 3G, it is known as node B, right? So whatever the closest hardware which is in the tower, right? So you would see in the tower the antenna, but it is not only the antenna. So in other than the antenna, here you will have some equipment, right? So just give me 1 minute. I will get to draw this. Right. Okay. So I will just draw and show you. Hope it will draw properly, right? So whenever the mobile phone, let's say I want to make a voice call, right? So let's say I wanted to make a voice call. So we have to request from the network that I need to get connected for a voice call, right? So when the user requests, it is going to send the information through the air interface, right? So this is air interface, right? That is where this user is getting connected to the network. So here you would see when you are traveling that there are towers in which you have this kind of cellular antennas, but it is not only the equipment you have. So the cellular antennas will get connected to something called the base station, right? So this base station, it is actually base transceiver station, right? So this is said to be base transceiver station, right? So here you have some hardware, that is you will be having some cards which are doing some processing, right? So you would have learned under communication systems, or else even if it is I students, I hope you did introduction to telecommunication. So you would have heard about this modulation. So modulation and the demodulation. So modulation and demodulation happens in the mobile station, and it is being, the signal is being sent in the air. So at the base transceiver station, it is also doing the demodulation and the modulation, because it is bidirectional communication, right? So at a given point of time, it will receive the signal which gets demodulated, or else if we are sending the information, we will do the modulation. So those kind of radio frequency related processing is being done in the base transceiver station. So this is a 2G network, right? But if it is a 3G network, we have something called the node B, right? So that is the name given to it. There is no separate wording like this. But here also we are going to have the same antenna, and then it is going to get connected to this particular hardware. And that hardware is going to get connected to this controller. So here you can see we have something called the BSC, base station controller. Right, so this is base station controller, BSC, and this is radio network controller. Right, so why do we need this is, let's say if we are talking about the area like, let's say Colombo district, right? So in Colombo district, in order to provide continuous coverage, we know that if I travel from Colombo to Paducah, and if I'm using a dialogue SIM, we have continuous coverage, right? So in order for us to have continuous coverage, this kind of base stations need to be located. It might be about within 2 to 3 kilometers range, within 5 kilometers range. So likewise, there's going to be a pole network. So similar type of base stations which are located closer to each other are connected to this BSC, which means there will be another tower, let's say, if this is, let's say, Paducah, and this is, let's say, Mipe. So likewise, there will be large number of towers. So the towers which are located in almost nearby are connected to the same base station controller. So likewise, let's say if we take Sri Lanka, right? So I will just draw it in a map. So in Sri Lanka, let's say we have so many towers around Sri Lanka like this, right? So these dots I'm pointing is the tower locations. So maybe the ones which we have in this Colombo area, it gets connected to one BSC. But down south, it is going to get connected to another BSC. So likewise, there will be one hardware. This might be located in this case, let's say Colombo 2. And then this BSC2 might be located in Gaul. So likewise, all the towers will get connected to each other, right? So all the towers in this area would get connected to BSC1. And these BSCs will have their connectivities using something called the MSC, Mobile Switching Center, right? So likewise, around the country, we will be having a number of base station controllers. So similarly, in 3G also, we are going to have radio network controllers, right? And then, as I said, similar type of these kind of BSCs or RNCs will get connected to a central point, which we call as MSC, right? MSC means it is Mobile Switching Center. Right, this is Mobile Switching Center. So this actually, it controls all the different BSCs and the RNCs. So there will be another BSC coming from south. There can be another BSC coming from north. So all these BSCs will get connected to MSC, which might be located somewhere in Colombo, which is the central point of the network, right? And if we take, there is, here you can see from this, we have something called GMSC. This G means gateway MSC. So we know that we generally make calls from dialogue to Mobitel, right? So that means the calls can be generated from one operator to the other. So this gateway MSC is the MSC which gets connected. Let's say if it is a dialogue network, this is the dialogue network side. And if we want to provide the users with capability of making calls to Mobitel, so this is Mobitel, right? So in that case, it is going to get connected, this PST, and you may omit, but there's going to be the GMSC of Mobitel. right? So there will be gateway MSCs which gets connected to each other. So which means this is an inter-operator connectivity. So at this point, Dialog and Mobitel networks will get connected to each other. So if this connectivity is not there, the users of Dialog network will not be able to make calls to Mobitel and vice versa, right? So likewise, this is voice communication, right? And then we know that in a mobile network, we provide voice services, and other than that, we provide data. So in data, we know that we need to get connected to the internet, right? So when we are getting connected to internet, so this side you can see now I explained it is the voice communication. So this side is what we have for the internet. So IP network means basically this would be the internet, whatever the servers we have in the internet, right? So the radio network, or whether it is BSC or the radio network controller, when a user is requesting for, let's say, data connectivity, let's say I type in my mobile phone www.google.com, right? So that request, let's say this is me and I'm requesting, I have 3G coverage. So using the 3G network, I'm requesting to get connected to the Google server. So the Google server is here in the internet, right? Which means I'm requesting to get connected to here, which means my request should travel from here to here, right? That is the data part, right? So this, what I explained earlier, is related to voice communication, and this part is what we use for data communication, right? So here we have, as you can see, just like we have the MSC, which connects all these things, we have something called the SGSN. So SGSN means serving GPRS support node, right? So GPRS, I hope you know GPRS. So GPRS is the 2G technology we earlier used to have data communication, right? So now we have 3G, we have LTE. So likewise, we in the 2G technology, GPRS means it is the way. GSM, we know it is the voice calls. GPRS is the data connectivity, right? So there is this hardware which connects our devices to the IP network, right? And in other than that, we have the gateway. Once again, here also you can see, if my network needs to get connected to an outer network, we need to have a gateway. So likewise, if my users wants to get connected to an IP network, which is an outside network, we need to have a gateway GPRS support node, right? So this is the path in which we are going to have the communication for data. In addition to that, here you can see some boxes, right? So here we have something called HLR. So it is home location register, which means this is where it is a database in which it has all the users registered in a network, right? So as an example, let's say if it is the Dialog network, all the user numbers, the SIM numbers, along with the registered users are saved in this particular database, home location register, right? And there is something called authentication center, right? So this is authentication, this one center, right? So let's say I'm let's say I'm using a Dialog SIM, but I'm out of Dialog coverage, but I have Mobitel coverage. So in that case, you would have seen that sometimes in our mobile phones, you see emergency calls only, right? So why do you see that emergency calls only? Is that, yes, you have Mobitel signals, but you are a Dialog user. So you cannot use the normal services of Mobitel, but in case there is an emergency, we can define the emergency numbers. If we dial those emergency numbers, the calls will get through the Mobitel network, even though I'm a Dialog user. right? So this authentication center makes sure that if this is the dialogue network, no Mobitel user is making normal calls using this particular network. So we have to get authenticated in the network. That is what happened when we switch on the mobile phone. It takes a little bit of time to show us the coverage. So once we see the coverage bars, that means I have get connected to the network. So why does it take some time? This authentication center checks whether this user is authenticated in this particular, in my network, to make calls, right? So that is why we use the authentication center. And here we have something called the visitor location register. That means it is again a database, right? So you can remember HLR is a database. VLR is once again a database. So in visitor location register, it has the details where I am currently in the network, right? So as an example, I'm a dialogue user, and let's say I'm now in Paducah, right? So now I'm in Paducah. So in VLR, it will have that, right? Against my mobile number, it will show that I'm getting service from the Paducah tower, right? But let's say after about 15 minutes, I move to Godagama and I get connected to the Godagama tower. In that case, this VLR entry will get updated as now this mobile number is in the Godagama tower, right? So why this is important? Because we know that the network need to know where I am in case someone else is calling me. Because the network should know, let's say I'm here in Godagama. So the network should know that this user is in Godagama, so that when another user is making a call to me, that call needs to be forwarded to me through this Godagama tower, right? So for that, we need to have the VLR. And then we have the SMSC. So SMS, I hope you know what is SMS, short message service, SMS as we send. So SMSC means SMS center. So this is where it handles, the network handles our SMSs. It will have a copy here, and then it will be forwarded to us. After some time, it will delete the SMSs in its database, right? So these are the different components which we have in the network. So why I explain here is, I just wanted to explain what is access network, what is transmission network, and what is core network, right? So now, out of these things which I already explained, maybe let's say I will take a different color, right? So if I take this BTS along with BSC, and for whether it is 2G and 3G, this whole part, this is what we call as the access network, right? This is access network, that is users getting the access to my network in this part. That is what we call as the access network. Just give me a minute. Right? So this is where we are having the access network. That means access. It is the word, it is the word itself, the meaning itself, access. So that is where the users access the particular network, right? And then we had the core network. So core network means it is C-O-R-E, core. The core means the midpoint, right? So core network means it includes all these things which I explained, whether it is voice or whether it is data. This whole part is the core network, right? So it includes MSC, GMSC, HLR, PLR, SGSN, GTS, and everything, right? Access network, core network, and then I told something about transmission network, right? So this transmission network means it is where we connect these different network nodes, all these links. So it can be fiber communication, right? So sometimes these network nodes are get connected using fiber, right? Or else it can be sometimes some other microwave links. Sometimes it can be even satellite links, right? So this connectivity is what we call as the transmission network. So these are the three main areas in our networks, right? So whatever the telecom networks, whether it is 2G, I use the 2G, 3G architecture, but whether it is 4G or 5G, the same access network, the same transmission and the core network would be there, but there can be differences of their functions, but these three parts are